first of all, I would like to start by doing an introduction to Natilic. So, who is Natilic, and what do we represent? So, Natilic is a global managed services technology company, and we work across these 5 technology stacks for digital transformation. So, modern networks representing the infrastructure and wireless, collaboration and modern work for WebEx calling, and also meeting rooms, customer engagement for contact center, and omni-channel engagement for our clients that have those requirements. The multi-cloud and data centers, a hot topic in this day and age, and leading us to the final, cybersecurity, which is what we're here to talk about today. So I'd just probably like to start talking about how we represent Natilic. So we like to talk about ourselves represented by the 5 C's. So first of all, capability. Across those 5 technology tech stacks that we just spoke about, our capability is we're a Cisco preferred partner across all of these, utilizing Cisco's new terminology in their partner program. So a preferred partner status globally across all of our regions, which leads nicely into our next slide, which is our coverage. So we are, as I mentioned, a global organization, headquartered in Sydney in the APAC region, London covering the EMEA region, and New York City in Americas. We also have fulfillment offices in both Singapore and Ireland to help with our global logistics. I should also mention that our global network operations center with our tech support engineers are located in those 3 headquartered locations as well. So why do our clients work with us? So consistency, our global consistency and our approach is key. For our multinational clients, it is exceptionally important that no matter where they engage with Natilic, that they feel as though that they're getting the same engagement with us. So our approach is discover, so understanding our clients' requirements, into design, so working with our clients' understood business requirements, coming up with a solution design, and moving through to our transition business, which is our project and implementation, and manage as well. So as I mentioned, our global tech support team with our world-class service delivery management as well. And underpinned under all of that, we have our success tracks. So our success, making sure that the technology that we deploy is adopted and used to its fullest extent within our clients, ensuring therefore that as we go through the life cycle of the engagement with our clients, that our services and solutions that are deployed are fully used to its most optimum. If we then move on to talking about why we're here today, I'm going to hand over now to Stuart Andrews, who will go into some lovely detail on Cisco Identity Services Engine.
Thanks, Brad. I'll be covering ISE, or Identity Services Engine. I'll also, at the end, will cover a Meraki offering, which has a similar capabilities, but I'll cover that at the very end. So ISE has been around since 2011, and it's sort of like it came as a predecessor for a product called Access Control System, which still forms a function of ISE today. So ISE supports the zero trust methodology for the workplace. Basically, we need to understand visibility of understanding what devices are connected to our network. We'd like to do segmentation, so only grant the required access on that, and containment. So when things go wrong, we need to revoke access, that access. So these are sort of like the fundamentals of the zero trust in the workplace. So ISE sort of like capabilities of this help support that methodology by establishing trust. So why are they connecting to the network? Who's connecting to the network? Enforcing the trust, only be given access that's required from that. So if you don't need access to certain systems and services, then you don't get it. Continuous and verified trust, because we know that people are once connected, that their posture could change. So they could become infected with malware. They may change their behaviour. From that, we need to continuously verify their trust. And then, should things go wrong, should anything be compromised, then we need to rapidly contain that device or that user. So, just a couple of points on here that there's differences between authentication and authorization. So, authentication is who you are. So it's like a username, a password, a certificate, a token. So this is like identifying you, the user, and the device you're connecting to the network with. And then we've got authentication. So authentication determines the access that you require. So in this example, the employee probably wants full access to all the servers and shared services throughout the network. Whereas a contractor, you may want to limit them to certain number of services and not give them access to privileged services. So this is the fundamental of what ISE actually does. So it wants to identify you as the user and give you the correct access and restrict you where necessary. So client challenges with ISE. So I'll admit, ISE is a complex product, and it's got very many features and capabilities. And what we find is that a client will introduce purchase ISE for certain functions, introduce those functions, and really not move forward with the full capabilities of what ISE can actually provide. So these are the actual things that ISE can provide. And I know some customers who have purchased it purely for device administration. So device administration is fundamental where ISE came from. It's still there today. So any device supporting TACACS, your support engineer will use TACACS, logging onto switches and routers, and Cisco ISE will support that. But going all the way through to segmentation, to threat containment side of things, it's a bit of a journey and a lot to configure on that. So I understand sort of like it's a beast of a product, and just to say, like, Natilica here to help you on that journey. So a typical journey could be by ISE for a given option. So it could be network access control, the use case at the very beginning there, giving you visibility. You don't necessarily want to go through all those stages. You may not be interested in posture. You may not be interested in segmentation, but maybe you're interested in rapid threat containment. When things do go wrong. So this is sort of like the journey that you could go on, but it's not necessarily for everybody on that. And please don't sort of like stop at the first hurdle thinking you've done. There's so much more that the actual product can actually offer. So, as I mentioned, TACACS and device administration is one of the key fundamental features of that. Yeah, anything sort of like the network engineer. This provides three things: authentication, authorization, and accounting. So, authentication, making sure they got the right credentials. No one's doing the shared passwords or password 123 and things like that. Each individual's got their own specific user account. Authorization is really sort of like what commands they're actually allowed to put into a certain router or a switch or a server. And then accounting is the key one. It's the audit trail. So every command that the engineer types in and every response that they get is recorded. So we can actually go back and look through an audit trail to find out why things were configured and who configured them at what particular time. So that's device administration. Again, this is one of the reasons why people buy ISE, purely because of this, no other reason, and that's fine, and it's still there today. Another one is guest access. So certainly for guest wireless access, where some wireless solutions were quite limited, the amount of onboard for guest onboarding. But ICE provides three features, alternatives to actually onboarding their guests. Obviously, pre-shared keys not the ideal way. Pretty sort of like a low entry sort of a way of authentication users on there, and you probably have to go in and change the pre-shared key every now and then just to sort of like keep things relevant. But here we've got hotspots, we've got self-registration and sponsored guests, and also there's the social media element of it. So if you want to sign on with Facebook and things like that, makes life a lot easier for the actual for the actual users. So with this, we can actually give sort of like time constraints as well. So if you're self-registered, you may be a contractor on there, and we can limit that to sort of like maybe 30 days if there are only 30 days. It's the same for the sponsored guests. So it's not forever, not self-registration forever or sponsored forever. You may allow it for a day, a month, or whatever the requirements are for that. So ICE can perform that for you as alongside your wireless solution. So posturing compliancy, this is getting sort of like more relevant today with certainly with compliancy about devices. So ICE offers a compliancy feature, and it's really sort of like tackled for three groups of users. There's the MDM element. So ICE integrates with any MDM solution. Once it's on board, if you're involved in that MDM, then ICE can actually bring you on board and give you a posture rating, whether you're compliant, non-compliant, or unknown. Or we can use a Cisco Secure Client, which gives you additional capabilities, or there's an agentless option on there. So just want to sort of like work through how posture works. So it's all part of the authentication. So part of the onboarding and the network access control element, it's just an additional set of exchanges where we get a posture request from ICE. So the device does posture request. ICE will then interrogate wherever that maybe the MDM solution that user is, and report back on what on the actual status of the posture. And again, there's three statuses. There's going to be compliant, unknown, or not compliant, depending on the actual status of the actual endpoint. So from the MDM, and this is the key one really that's used today, that if you're involved in MDM, that you must have a complex password, you must have a PIN code, and all that's determined within MDM. That is all passed towards ICE, and this is where we get the actual compliancy on that. So an example here is a jailbreak. So if a phone joins network and it's deemed to be a jailbroken status, so not a fully fledged iPhone or an Android phone, some sort of like spooky software on there, that we can revoke access to the network. The other one is using Cisco Secure Client. Some people may know this as AnyConnect. So Cisco Secure Client offers some additional ability because it's got it's got visibility of the actual endpoint itself. It can pass more information and more metadata back to ICE to make sure you conform into to the posture check. So the agentless posture check, it runs a series of scripts. It runs SSH and shell on there. It's probably the more easier one because it doesn't require a client, doesn't require an MDM, and can be done for any device. The only thing me personally would come up against is that you need to open up a personal firewall on that device to actually allow that posture checking to actually happen. But we run this for some of our global clients. Run agentless posturing without a problem. Once that sort of like that firewalling element's been overcome and then accepted by the cybersecurity team, then posture checking is a great advantage. So putting those things into perspective on posturing. If the posture does change at all, and maybe I've got an example later on, that ISE can update and revoke that access and take access away if need be. Visibility. So we had sort of like the question of this webinar is sort of like, do you know what's connected to your network? We don't, not anyone knows what's connected to the network if you haven't got something like ISE on there. So you may have a good idea on what's out there, but like every time we've installed ISE for a client, there's always been some unknown entities that have been forgotten about or are using the network without permission. So without ISE, we don't know what's out there. With ISE being introduced, we get to know who's connected to the network, which is a step forward in that sense. But then we can actually start to classify these together. We can put these in groups, and when they're in groups, we can actually then apply policy to them and provide access. So maybe your Apple Macs will want access to some services, and your Linux machines to others. And then we can start restricting that access and make it more granular for that, rather than giving access to everything and everybody. So endpoint profiling. So there's lots of things on that network. This is a really key feature on that. And I haven't deployed any ISE sort of like a configuration without any profiling. Profiling is the ability to actually recognize a device for what it is. So it's particularly very good for like CCTV cameras, for IP telephones, for coffee machines, IoT devices. So ISE has got the ability, and it uses probes to actually interrogate the device and find out what it is. Previously, we'd have to identify it using MAC address, which is a bit messy. And sort of like if say a CCTV camera needed replacing, we'd have to sort of like get a new IP address, a new MAC address of that camera, and swap it out. So this is quite a very sort of messy process. ISE has got the ability to say, right, these CCTV cameras, we can sort of put them in a policy all of their own and by them by using this probing automatically. So there's none of this running around looking at MAC addresses. ISE has got the intelligence to actually recognise that device for what it is and put it into the correct policy. So secure networking. So once we've got all the devices on board, we need a way of authentication, and this really depends on how your sort of your appetite for security over connectivity. So on the left-hand side, we could have an open network, as in anyone can come along and plug into the network, or you may have a pre-shared key, as the MSK indicates there. A pretty open network there, and not very zero trust efficient either. As we move down to the right-hand side, it becomes more and more sort of like okay, 82.1x, finding out who the device on the network. And that could be using a password, a certificate, a machine certificate, or even relying on a user to actually interrogate it with some sort of MFA. Today, I'd say the two common factors are 82.1x with certificates for managed devices, because we can deploy certificates using MDM solutions. And we use MAB. So MAB's on the left-hand side. This is where we recognise it with a MAC address. The only reason why we use MAPs is when they're not 82.1x compliant. So this may be like an IP phone, it may be a CCTV camera, printer that doesn't support 82.1x, and we need a way of onboarding them. Obviously, we don't want to put them into an open network, because an open network's got vulnerabilities themselves. So we use MAB or profiling, can use MAB in that instance, and that's sort of like they're the two key requirements to actually onboard the devices. Segmentations. Once we're onboarded, we can then sort of like start using segmentation. And again, there's a number of options or ways of doing this. So we can put everything into a VLAN. So all your employees, all your printers, and all your guests go into one VLAN. The issue with that is that all printers then are treated exactly the same, all users are treated exactly the same. So it's quite sort of like a broad essence of segmentation. A better way of doing it would probably be the ACLs side of things. So you need to identify those users and then put them into and have a specific ICLs. This has got quite a lot of overhead on management. It's quite granular, which is good, but people's names changes, IP addresses changes, and that adds complexity to that. The new world and better way of doing it is secure group tagging. So once you're authenticated on that network, you're given a tag based on your user and your device. Once you get any packet that leaves that device or enters the network is tagged, and then from that tag we can actually determine what access you've got to what services. So a tagging sort of like policy would look like this. It used to be sort of like lots of codes, and now it's sort of like a nice GUI and a lot more simple to drive on here. But the level of detail you can go down to is quite specific. So if you look at the source tags on the left and the destination tags on at the top, we can then say what machines you're allowed to talk to and on what protocols. We can actually drill down to what protocols themselves if need be, or we can just say allow all protocols, allow none. So anyone can really drive this matrix. It's a lot more easier to manage than previously sort of like long lists of access lists and things. And this makes secure group tagging the way forward for segmentation. As mentioned, the packet that leaves the device, we use this CMD field. It's actually a CTS metadata field, and we actually populate that with the security group tagging information. So there's no real overhead on the network for doing this. The actual network itself can be flat, relatively flat in that side of things. We don't have to VLAN up anything because it's done. The actual segmentation is being done on the actual individual machine itself, as opposed to a port, a switch, or a location. So one of the massive benefits of ISE is the integrations that it has. So ISE supports PX Grid. So PX Grid is a form of sort of like exchanging contextual information between PX devices, and this opens up a multitude of options that ISE can actually integrate with. So certainly a great integration is your vulnerability scanners. So if a vulnerability scanner scans the device, picks up a problem with a particular device, it can then report back to ISE of that finding, and I've got an example of that coming up. But we can also actually send out contextual data back out to things like seams and other information as well, such as like info-blocks, which will help form the picture, greater picture of the posture of devices. Yeah, there's over 100 integration products on there. I'm not going to go through them, but like pretty much every seam, every vulnerability management option on there, DHCP services, endpoint security elements is an important thing as well, because that's so yeah, lots of integrations on that, yeah, I'll move on from that slide. So identity. In Cisco Secure Cloud Control. So you may have heard of Cisco Cloud Control. There's sort of like Cisco releasing this in October, It's basically any Cisco product will be able to plug into Cisco's cloud controller and have visibility. The idea of this is a single dashboard for every Cisco product that you've got out there. Today, there's a specific one called Cisco Secure Cloud Controller, and ISE plugs into that. So if you've got Cisco firewalls, Cisco ISE, you can, from one dashboard, you can look at the whole Cisco portfolio, security portfolio from that. Cisco are taking it one step further from that now in October and having the whole portfolio. So if you've got switches, routers, any firewalls, ISE, and any Cisco product will actually have a presence in Cisco Cloud Controller, and that will be coming in October this year. So, as you expect with any other Cisco products, if there's not an integration at the 100 of lists I've just mentioned, the Cisco open APIs are available for ISE. So if there's anything specific, anything sort of like that's not integrated already out of the box, that you've got the REST APIs that will help you perform that integration if needed. And just to go back to this example of an integration, so I'm going to take Jim as an example at the top here. He's authenticated on the network. He's sitting on the network, but Jim's also running sort of like some sort of a vulnerability scanner, maybe from Rapid7 or Tenable or Qualys, and that's actually run a scan and picked up a report that Jim's got like a vulnerability on there. It's a CVSS score of 10, so it's quite high on that. So using the PX grid, the actual vulnerability scanner will then inform ISE of that scan and that vulnerability. And because ISE, we can actually put policies in ISE to actually say, right, if the CVS is above 5, then we can quarantine that. Then ISE will go out and actually quarantine that device off the network, making sure it's not a threat to Jim himself or Harry or Alice or any other device on the actual network. So this is where the containment comes into it, and this can happen in seconds. This is where the term rapid threat containment comes into effect, and this is a great example of that happening. That doesn't necessarily have to be a vulnerability scanner. That could be antivirus software. It could be your endpoint security. Anything that can feed back into ISE with an alert or anything that the ISE will, as the enforcer of the network, can take and quarantine that device off the network. So just going to go briefly over product packaging of ISE. Because it has come on a bit over the years. It's very scalable, as you can see, up to 2 million concurrent endpoints on that. We're here. We support a number of global clients with ISE throughout the globe. I'm not sure we're up to 2 million, but we've got some certainly in the tens of thousands. It can be deployed as a simple standalone solution, or it can be deployed as an actual global cluster. So the options sort of like for this, depending on the size of the organisation, so it's very scalable up and can grow as your organisation grows as well. So we can start small with a couple of either physical or virtual devices, right up to sort of like supporting 2 million endpoints on that. So very scalable. From a deployment point of view, the PSNs, which is the policy service nodes, are the key policy makers that the user will interrogate. But behind the scenes of the PSN, we need an administration and monitoring and troubleshooting nodes, and they're normally housed either within the cloud or in a data center. And then PSNs are normally deployed as close to the users as possible, because we don't want to add any latency to the user authenticating on the network. So ISE can be deployed in several ways. So there's the physical appliances which can be deployed. So physical appliances, I mean, they're quite costly these days. They're quite big beasts. and majority of our clients are moving towards a virtual machines, and that's where we see the big trend. Obviously, if we've got virtual environments, then there's the cloud element. So we can deploy an ISE node in Azure, AWS, quite easily. We've got a number of clients running whole of ISE out of Azure. The actual one thing I would say as well is that Natilic have got their own Natilic cloud, and we can actually deploy ISE within that as well. So if you're not in the public cloud, or you want to limit ISE to your service provider, your managed service provider, then we can actually manage that service for you, deploy it on our platform. We've got 3 regions throughout the world, and take away the headache of hosting it for you. So just on a software point of view, 3.4 is the latest sort of like a recommended software, and 3.5 is the latest if you want the cutting edge on that. Things end of software maintenance is quite a milestone that should be considered here. So if you're running anything less than 3.3, then your software is not your ISE nodes are not being patched. So any vulnerabilities that do are raised will not be not maintained. The recommendation here is upgrade to 3.3 and above from that if you're anything less. From a licensing perspective, so this is a nested dole effect. So each device in the network has been simplified from version 2s. Version 2 is that you need multiple licenses per device. Here each device on the network, and it's concurrent devices on the network, I would say, we need one license attached to it. So it'll either be essentials, so just doing network access control. If doing anything like profiling, which I've mentioned, then profiling would need an Advantage license. And if you want to do that posture check-in or the MDM integration, you'd need a premium license on that as well. So just on the note on the licenses, it's concurrent. So if you've got a global organisation of say 1,000 people, you don't necessarily need 1,000 licenses for each device on the network, because obviously the time differences, you probably only have 70% of the people working on there. So the concurrent licenses is probably around 700 rather than 1,000, purely because of time differences throughout the globe. As mentioned previously, managed service. So yes, we do offer managed service. It is complex. It does take a lot to sort of like keep up to date, keep upgraded from that side of things. And we're seeing more and more clients just handing over the reins to Natilic. This is very much our bread and butter. All of engineers are very up to speed with ISE, and it's pretty much not a nice scenario that we haven't come across before. So handing over ISE to us as a managed service, whether it's us managing your on-site presence of ISE, or having it hosted in Azure, or having it hosted on the Natilic cloud. Either option will work, and we're here to support you on that. As promised, just a quick sort of like a couple of slides on Meraki. So Meraki launched last year Access Manager. Meraki Access Manager is really a cut down version of ISE, a subset. So it doesn't offer all the features that ISE does, but it offers a good chunk of them. And certainly if you've got a Meraki network, or Meraki MXs and Meraki switches, then certainly Meraki Access Manager is a consideration for that. We've got clients that have been, that have tested it through alpha testing and beta testing, and now it is on GA. And they're running it in production. So it's out there, it's working. It's quite new, but if you think that it's got ISE behind it, it's not new from the ground up. Just on the slide, this is sort of a comparison of Meraki Access Controller Access Manager versus Cisco ISE. As you can see, some of the things are limited on that. So on profiling is not really haven't got the advanced profiling on that, and posture checking is limited, very limited on that as well. So why would you use Access Manager on that? Pretty much if you just wanted, if you've got nothing in place at the moment for network access control, you've got Meraki network, then certainly Meraki Access Manager is serious consideration. If you want anything more advanced than that, then maybe ISE is the better option. So yeah, with that, I'd like to come back to Brad for next steps.
Thank you, Stu. So clearly a lot of detail there, guys. And as Stu said, you know, it is complicated, but this is exactly our wheelhouse, and Natilic is here to help you. So one of our offerings as next steps is we offer a free ISE assessment. We will clearly send out the recording, the slides, and this big button down the bottom is a live link so that you can register for your free ISE assessment, or reach out to your Cisco account, your Natilic account manager or your Natilic service delivery manager as well. So with that, we're going to move on to some Q&A. So we've got clearly Stu's managed to deliver that exactly as he would said on time. So we've got a few questions that have come through. So I'll step through these. If we don't get to your question, please note that we will reach out to you and come back to you. But we do have a couple that have come through. So the first one is we've heard today that Natilic offers a managed service, but does Natilic offer a managed service specifically for ISE? So I think Stu did cover a little bit of this, but yes, part of our global Follow the Sun technical support team, we can get our services team to follow up with you to complete what we call a managed service requirement capture. We understand that no managed service is equal or the same, so we would welcome the opportunity to go through that process with you to see how we can customize our offering for you. The next question, can Natilic support migrations of moving ISE from on-prem to the cloud? So yeah, this happens, we're seeing this more and more as many clients have a cloud migration strategy. So we've done this a number of times for our multinational clients, including to Azure, as Stuart mentioned, and also to Natilic's own cloud. So a good halfway house if you're not wanting to go full cloud, you're wanting your service provider, your managed service partner to take that for you. So Natilic has that offering as well. So again, we would reach out to you directly and understand your details more closely, but certainly that is something that we can help with. The next question, do you need to have a Cisco network infrastructure to use ISE? A nice short answer here is no, you do not. So Cisco is just the infrastructure. ISE can plug in on top of that no matter what network that you've got behind the scenes. I've answered a technical question there, Stu. Hopefully you don't mind.
That's fine. That's fine. As long as your switches can support 802.1x, then yeah, we can put onboard users using 802.1x. So yeah, not necessarily Cisco networks required on that.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so that leads us, no, there's one more. Does Cisco Cloud Control also cover Cisco Meraki systems and all compute systems, including the Cisco Unified Edge in October? Thank you for that multi-structured question. Stu, is that an easy one to answer or something that requires more detail?
Yeah, I think it requires more. I would say yes, because the whole idea of Cloud Controller is that every Cisco product is included in that. So I'll have to double check, but I've got for certain that's going to be a yes.
Lovely. So we'll come back to you more directly on that. But great, that's Stu literally calling out a live question there. So though, if there's any more questions, please do reach out following the webinar. As I mentioned, we will send out the the slides if you are registered, or even if you haven't managed to attend. You will also be able to review the recording here as well. So with that, we will wrap up. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day, and thank you especially to Stu. A lot of prep into that, and clearly a lot of talking. He will have earned his Thursday beer o'clock this afternoon. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.